Have you ever asked yourself why, despite working tirelessly, despite endless plans and efforts, financial stress still finds you, like a shadow that refuses to disappear? Have you ever faced the quiet, relentless pressure of obligations, the gnawing awareness that your efforts are not translating into freedom, security, or peace, and wondered whether success is reserved for someone else, someone with luck, connections, or innate genius? Consider this. What if everything you have believed about money, effort, and achievement is incomplete, a fragment of the truth, and there exists a law, a single law, so profound that once understood, it dissolves financial anxiety as a flame is snuffed out by air? What if you could learn this law, internalize it, and watch as the chains of worry loosen, as the burden of scarcity melts away, not by chance, not by luck, but through the deliberate, precise application of mental mastery and purpose? Ask yourself now, are you ready to see the mechanism of wealth not as something external, not as a commodity to be chased blindly, but as a consequence of disciplined thought, unwavering desire, and absolute clarity of purpose? For the mind that does not understand this law will continue to spin in the same cycles of desperation, chasing fleeting relief, always reacting, never commanding, never creating. And yet, for the mind that absorbs it fully, financial stress is not merely alleviated, it ceases to exist, because scarcity cannot inhabit the consciousness that operates under the immutable laws of wealth. This law is not an instruction manual, it is a principle, a force, an inner current that moves those who understand it into positions of abundance while leaving the unprepared tethered to struggle. It is the law of definiteness of purpose, combined with the catalytic energy of desire, the synthesis of thought, faith, and disciplined action. Napoleon Hill taught that riches, whether financial or in influence, in opportunity or in fulfillment, do not arrive by chance. They are conjured from the mind, molded by persistent application of mental laws that operate whether you are conscious of them or not. You may have believed that money is earned through work alone, or through timing or luck. That belief is incomplete. It is a fragment of a broader reality. Money, like every material manifestation, is attracted by thought, disciplined intention, and unwavering emotional conviction. It responds to minds that are organized, to plans that are executed with persistence, and to faith that is not shaken by temporary defeat. It flows to those who can master themselves first, who have conquered fear, doubt, indecision, and inconsistency. Without such mastery, no amount of labor, education, or ingenuity can permanently remove the tension that financial insecurity brings. Picture yourself in a moment of complete clarity, a mental state where every choice, every action, every expenditure is guided not by impulse or external pressure, but by a conscious design. This is not fantasy. It is the natural outcome of the law that Hill distilled over decades of study of the world's wealthiest minds. You must understand that financial stress is not a reflection of your external circumstances. It is a mirror of your internal state. The mind that is fearful, scattered, or indecisive produces scarcity. The mind that is focused, purposeful, and fortified with faith produces wealth. Observe your own patterns. How often do you delay action because of doubt? How often do you succumb to temporary relief rather than long-term solution? How often do you let fear dictate the steps of your life, convincing yourself that the law of abundance is unavailable, that opportunities are limited, that scarcity is inevitable? These are lies born from neglecting the fundamental principle. Whatever you can conceive and hold with emotional conviction, you can command into reality, provided your purpose is clear and your persistence is unyielding. The law I speak of operates in a silent, invisible way, yet its consequences are unmistakable. It does not announce itself. It does not require permission. It does not bend for hesitation. It responds only to precise, deliberate, disciplined thought, aligned with a definitive purpose. To those who obey it, it brings clarity in decision, courage in adversity, and resources that appear as if drawn by gravity itself. To those who ignore it, life becomes a ceaseless cycle of anxiety, missed opportunity, and reactive struggle. Consider this carefully. The separation between those who experience financial stress and those who command financial ease is not education, social position, or luck. It is mental discipline, the alignment of desire with purpose, the conscious and repeated application of thought toward a specific goal until faith transforms that thought into action and action into result. This law demands more than wishing, more than planning, more than hope. It demands mastery of the inner world, your beliefs, your emotions, your decisions, your habits. Until the inner empire is secured, the outer world will continue to test you with obstacles, debts, delays, and unfulfilled effort. You must face the uncomfortable truth. Most who labor under financial stress have not truly committed to a definite purpose. They have scattered energy, divided attention, and desire that flickers like a candle in wind. Hill observed that desire, when undefined or weak, dissipates like mist. Faith, when untrained or unfocused, falters at the first sign of adversity. Autosuggestion, the tool of mental programming, is left dormant or worse, misused to reinforce doubt, fear, and limitation. These are not coincidences. They are the predictable outcomes of misalignment with the law that governs financial success. And yet the law itself, simple once understood: set a definite goal, cultivate a burning desire for its attainment, fortify that desire with unwavering faith, feed the mind daily with positive autosuggestion, and take decisive, persistent action toward the goal. Repeat this cycle without exception, and the mind will marshal unseen forces, draw opportunities, generate ideas, attract allies, and command resources. Financial stress will dissolve because the mind that is in harmony with this law does not dwell in lack, it inhabits abundance. Think now of your own life as a laboratory. Examine your attitudes, your habitual thoughts, your recurring fears. Financial stress is not merely a condition to be endured. It is data, evidence of where your thinking and emotional habits are misaligned with the natural laws of wealth. Ask yourself, do I allow fear to dictate my spending, my investment, my willingness to act? Do I hesitate because of imagined scarcity? Do I let doubt erode the certainty of my purpose? These are the patterns that must be dismantled. The process is psychological warfare, fought in silence within the mind. The outer world reacts predictably to the inner commands of your consciousness. Master the inner world, and the outer world becomes your servant. Fail to master it, and you remain a slave to circumstance, eternally reacting, always anxious, always stressed. The law also exposes another truth that is uncomfortable but essential. There are no shortcuts, no tricks, no temporary relief that transforms financial stress into permanent peace. Relief without mastery is ephemeral. Abundance without understanding is fleeting. The mind must internalize this law fully, not superficially. You must think, feel, and act as a person who is already aligned with your purpose. You must act as if scarcity is a foreign concept, as if failure is a lesson observed but not internalized as limitation. This is the essence of Hill's philosophy, that mental control, emotional mastery, and persistence in action are the true currencies of success. Money follows, not the reverse. External circumstances will bend to the mastery of the inner laws, provided that mastery is complete, unwavering, and disciplined. Consider the role of imagination in this process. The mind that generates wealth is not limited by what exists. It creates what can exist. Ideas, opportunities, innovative solutions, these are all drawn by the imagination of one whose purpose is clear, whose desire is burning, and whose faith is unshakable. Financial stress is neutralized when the mind stops reacting to limitations and begins creating possibilities. Every debt, every shortfall, every scarcity is a challenge that tests the alignment of your inner laws. Face these challenges not with despair, but with disciplined imagination. Ask, how can this circumstance be leveraged? How can I convert this obstacle into an opportunity? The answers are not abstract. They are practical, precise, actionable, and they emerge with consistency. When the mind is trained to obey the principles that govern wealth creation, persistence is the silent engine that enforces this law. Many understand the theory. Many can articulate the principles, yet most fail in practice because they give up at the first resistance. Hill called persistence the essential companion of desire, the force multiplier that converts intention into reality. Financial stress often persists precisely because the individual halts effort too soon, wavers in belief, or allows fear to redirect energy. into reactive, non-productive channels. The mind must be fortified to continue, to act decisively, to refine strategy, while maintaining an unwavering trajectory toward the defined goal. In this state, stress is transformed from a paralyzing weight into a signal, a guide, a reflection of areas requiring clarity, courage, or greater concentration of effort. Finally, consider your relationship with fear. Fear of failure, fear of lack, fear of embarrassment. These are the mental parasites that drain energy and corrupt judgment. Financial stress thrives on fear. To eliminate it, one must consciously confront fear, dissect it, understand its origin, and then replace it with faith, certainty, and a disciplined plan of action. The law does not remove fear automatically. It requires courage to align thought with purpose, to act despite uncertainty, to persist despite resistance. Master fear, and the law of wealth operates unhindered. Fail to master fear, and financial stress will continue to infiltrate every decision, every moment, every breath. The question you must carry from this moment forward is not how to earn more, but how to command your mind to operate in alignment with this law. Your financial reality is the mirror of your inner state. Once you learn this law fully, once you internalize its principles and act upon them without hesitation, financial stress does not merely diminish, it ends. The mind that is disciplined, purposeful, persistent, imaginative, and fearless commands resources, orchestrates opportunity, and transforms limitation into advantage. This is not a promise, it is a law. Obey it, and your life shifts. Ignore it, and struggle remains inevitable. The choice rests entirely within you, and the clarity with which you understand and act upon this law will determine whether financial stress continues to haunt you or whether you step into a state of assured abundance, where money serves you rather than the other way around. Now that you have glimpsed the law, that invisible, undeniable force that governs wealth and abundance, the next question emerges: how does one internalize it? How does one transform understanding into lived reality, knowledge into action, thought into tangible result? The answer lies in the disciplined orchestration of the mind itself, in the deliberate and consistent application of autosuggestion, imagination, and the unrelenting pursuit of your definitive purpose. Napoleon Hill observed, "Ved that the mind, when rightly trained, is a factory of wealth, a magnetic field of opportunity, a conduit through which desire becomes reality. But left unattended, it becomes a breeding ground for fear, doubt, indecision, and limitation. Financial stress is the predictable consequence of a mind that is misaligned, distracted, or untrained. To end this stress once and for all, one must first become the architect of one's own consciousness, the master of the inner world, the captain of the unseen forces that determine external outcomes. Autosuggestion is the first tool, the hammer and chisel with which the mind carves its own destiny. It is not mere repetition of words, it is the deliberate, emotionally charged programming of thought until belief becomes unshakable. You must speak to yourself daily with the intensity of conviction, affirming your purpose, your ability, your unwavering command over circumstance. The statements you feed the subconscious must be precise, anchored in emotion, and repeated with persistence until the mind accepts them as fact. I am capable of commanding resources. I am guided to opportunities that fulfill my purpose. I am free from financial stress because I act with clarity, decisiveness, and faith. These are not empty phrases. They are the instruments of mental engineering. The subconscious does not differentiate between the imagined and the real. It responds to intensity, repetition, and belief. Feed it doubt, fear, or hesitation, and city deepens. Feed it certainty, purpose, and desire, and abundance unfolds. This is the silent war waged within you each day, the battle that precedes every outward victory. But autosuggestion alone is insufficient without imagination. Desire must be given form, possibility must be visualized, and plans must take shape in the mind before they manifest in reality. Hill emphasized that the imagination is the workshop of the mind, the crucible in which abstract thought is forged into concrete outcome. Picture your financial reality not as it is, but as it can be. Visualize the precise steps you will take, the resources you will command, the strategies you will deploy. Imagine the emotional state of freedom, the relief, the power, the clarity that accompanies a life where money serves rather than dominates. Do not merely think of wealth as accumulation, think of it as a reflection of mastery, a byproduct of a mind operating in perfect alignment with law. Let your imagination dwell upon the end, the fully realized purpose, until the subconscious begins to draw toward it the means of its manifestation. This is no idle daydream. It is deliberate, controlled, emotionally charged visualization synchronized with desire and faith. Faith is the engine that drives the process forward. Without faith, autosuggestion falters, imagination loses its power, persistence decays. Faith is not blind optimism, it is the certainty that the law works, that the alignment of mind and purpose produce. S results inevitable as gravity. It is the emotional conviction that thought, when disciplined and acted upon, commands circumstance. You must cultivate faith daily, feeding it with repeated mental affirmations, conscious belief, and emotional engagement. Doubt is the enemy of wealth. Fear is the barrier that blocks opportunity. Yet the individual who embraces faith moves through obstacles not as impediments, but as tests, as signals, as evidence that the law is active, that resistance is temporary, and that persistence will produce results. Faith is the alchemy that transmutes desire into action, thought into tangible outcome, and stress into liberation. Persistence is the second law that cannot be neglected. The majority falter not because they lack knowledge, but because they cease to act at the first sign of resistance. Financial stress is often most acute at the threshold of breakthrough. You may have experienced it yourself. Every plan, every effort, every calculated step toward financial freedom is met with friction, delay, or unexpected challenge. This is natural. It is the testing ground of mastery. The mind that yields to discouragement reinforces scarcity. The mind that persists, that adapts, that refines strategy without wavering in purpose, draws toward itself the resources and solutions necessary for success. Persistence is the continuous application of thought, the repeated action aligned with purpose, the refusal to yield to temporary setbacks. It is the engi nay that turns desire into accomplishment and fear into fuel. To end financial stress, one must develop persistence as a mental habit, as automatic as breathing, as non-negotiable as intention itself. Decision is the third indispensable companion to persistence. Indecision, delay, hesitation, these are the silent killers of opportunity, the incubators of stress. Hill noted that successful individuals make decisions promptly, change them slowly, if at all, and act decisively on the outcomes of those decisions. Financial stress arises when choice is deferred, when opportunities are not seized because the mind vacillates between possibilities. Each day of indecision compounds anxiety, erodes confidence, and reinforces scarcity consciousness. To counteract this, cultivate clarity and purpose so absolute that decision becomes automatic. Every choice is filtered through the lens of your definitive goal, every action weighed against the alignment with your desired outcome. The result is decisiveness, the antidote to procrastination, the shield against fear, the vector that channels thought and action toward abundance. Self-discipline is the framework that supports all of these principles. Desire without discipline is impulsive. Faith without discipline is fragile. Persistence without discipline is erratic. The individual who seeks to end financial stress must train the mind to act according to plan, to regulate emotion, to resist distraction, and to maintain focus under pressure. Financial decisions, lifestyle choices, spending habits, time allocation, all must be governed by the conscious exercise of discipline. The outer world will never reward inconsistency. It responds predictably to mastery. Discipline transforms potential into reality. It converts abstract thought into structured action. It converts anxiety into confidence, chaos into order, and uncertainty into controlled, deliberate movement toward defined goals. You must also confront the hidden force of mental resistance, fear in its many forms: fear of failure, fear of loss, fear of judgment, fear of the unknown. All of these drain energy, cloud judgment, and create the conditions for financial stress to persist. Hill called this the mastery of fear. Confronting fear is not a philosophical exercise, it is a practical imperative. Each time fear arises, examine it, dissect it, and replace it with decisive thought, clear action, and unwavering faith. Let the mind habitually respond to fear with purpose, not reaction, with strategy, not panic, with persistence, not hesitation. As this pattern is internalized, fear loses its dominion, scarcity is neutralized, and the law of wealth operates unhindered. Now, consider the cumulative effect of these principles. Applied in unison, desire, definiteness of purpose, faith, autosuggestion, imagination, persistence, decision, and self-discipline. Alone, each principle is powerful. Together, they form a mental machine capable of commanding circumstances at char, acting resources, and dissolving the stress that financial uncertainty imposes. Your mind becomes an attractor, a magnet for opportunity and abundance, a force of precise execution that translates intention into tangible outcome. The outer world reflects the inner command. The visible reality becomes the manifestation of invisible mastery. Financial stress does not merely decrease. It becomes obsolete because the consciousness that obeys the law operates from a position of unshakable certainty, creative power, and disciplined action. Examine your daily routine now. How often do you feed the subconscious with fear, doubt, or distraction? How often do you cultivate faith, clarity, and emotional intensity aligned with your purpose? How often do you persist despite challenge, make decisive choices, and maintain disciplined action? Each neglected moment reinforces scarcity. Each intentional moment strengthens abundance. The law is neutral. It rewards alignment, punishes neglect. To end financial stress, every thought, every action, every decision must be placed in service of mastery, of internal conquest, of mental and emotional alignment with the principles that govern wealth creation. Finally, understand that this process is not instantaneous, but neither is it random. The law unfolds predictably when applied correctly. Begin each day with deliberate mental programming through autosuggestion. Visualize the precise outcome you desire. Reinforce faith through conscious engagement. Purpose. Act decisively on opportunities, persist through resistance, and govern all choices with discipline. Gradually, imperceptibly at first, you will notice the shift. Anxiety diminishes, clarity strengthens, opportunity manifests, and financial stress begins to dissolve. The mind that obeys this law operates in harmony with the universal forces that govern success. You are no longer a victim of circumstance, you are the architect of reality. You are no longer reactive, you are proactive. You are no longer at the mercy of fear, you are in command of thought, action, and consequence. This law, once learned, once internalized, is permanent. Its mastery frees the mind, transforms behavior, and reshapes the trajectory of life. Financial stress is not an inevitable condition, it is a reflection of untrained thought, unfocused desire, and unresolved fear. Apply the principles deliberately, consistently, and without compromise, and the mind adapts. Obstacles are transformed into signals, challenges into opportunities, scarcity into leverage, stress into clarity. Wealth, then, is not a product of circumstance. It is the natural expression of a mind disciplined, purposeful, imaginative, persistent, decisive, and fearless. The liberation from financial anxiety is not a gift. It is a consequence, a predictable result, a law that operates silently, invisibly, yet unerringly. You must learn this law, not once but daily, until obedience is instinct, mastery is second nature, and financial stress ceases to exist, not temporarily but permanently. Now that you have glimpsed the principles that govern wealth, that invisible architecture behind every act of financial creation, the next stage requires a deeper confrontation with the mind itself. You must learn not only to think with purpose, but to condition every corner of your consciousness to operate in harmony with law. The subconscious mind is the field in which the seeds of abundance or scarcity take root. It is the silent worker that executes or sabotages every plan, every thought, every desire. If the subconscious is neglected, flooded with fear, doubt, and indecision, It will undermine effort, generate obstacles, and perpetuate financial stress. If it is disciplined, focused, and saturated with the principles of purpose, desire, and faith, it becomes an engine of wealth, an automatic orchestrator of opportunity, a conduit through which the invisible forces of the universe are channeled into concrete reality. To end financial stress permanently, one must command the subconscious as one commands a loyal general, precise, unwavering, and relentless. Begin by recognizing the patterns that dominate your habitual thought. Fear is not a singular force. It manifests as procrastination, self-sabotage, hesitation, and rationalization. Scarcity consciousness is cultivated not by external circumstance, but by internal repetition of limiting beliefs. I will never have enough. I cannot succeed in this venture. I am unworthy of abundance. These thoughts, repeated consciously or unconsciously, instruct the subconscious to generate exactly the reality they imply. Your mind, like a mirror, reflects the signals it receives. If you wish to alter your reflection, you must change the signals at their source. This is the role of autosuggestion, disciplined repetition, and emotional reinforcement. Feed the mind thoughts of abundance, mastery, and inevitable success until the subconscious no longer questions them. Repeat them daily, with emotional intensity, in the silence of morning, the stillness of night, and at the moments of vulnerability throughout the day. Thought without feeling is sterile. Intention without intensity is ignored. The law does not act on weak thought, only on thought imbued with unwavering conviction. Imagination is the laboratory in which these principles are tested. To create wealth, one must be able to see what does not yet exist, to plan for what is possible but invisible, to structure opportunity before it manifests. Visualization is not daydreaming, it is rehearsal, training the mind and emotional faculties to recognize paths, resources, and solutions that others fail to see. Imagine your financial goals as tangible realities. Picture the precise steps required, the interactions, the contracts, the decisions, and the flow of resources. Feel the state of freedom, confidence, and control as though it is already yours. This alley. GNS thought with emotion, conscious effort with subconscious execution, and desire with law. The subconscious cannot distinguish between imagined mastery and actual mastery when the emotional conviction is absolute. In this way, mental rehearsal becomes preparation, and preparation becomes magnetism, drawing opportunity and resources into alignment with your definite purpose. But visualization is insufficient without action. Thought alone, no matter how disciplined or emotionally charged, will not alter the external world. The law requires deliberate, persistent, decisive action. Each decision you make, each step you take, must be in service of your purpose. Deliberate action communicates to the subconscious, reinforces belief, and strengthens the magnetic pull of opportunity. Indecision is the root of anxiety. Hesitation is the seed of scarcity. The law does not tolerate vacillation. Make each choice with clarity, execute each step with precision, and reinforce every effort with faith. Action is the bridge between thought and reality. Without it, desire remains abstract, imagination remains speculative, and the subconscious remains underutilized. Persistent, consistent action aligned with purpose is the only way to solidify the principles into results, to transform stress into control, and to turn mental mastery into financial reality. Emotional mastery is equally essential. The individual who succumbs to negative emotion, fear, anger, jealousy, or despair, undermines the me. Intel machinery that attracts wealth. Emotional turbulence generates erratic thought patterns, undermines persistence, and weakens faith. Hill emphasized that the mind must be disciplined not only in thought but in feeling. One must learn to observe emotion, understand its triggers, and consciously choose response over reaction. Fear is neutralized when confronted with deliberate reasoning and decisive action. Desire is strengthened when paired with controlled emotional intensity. Anxiety dissolves when the mind operates from the certainty of law rather than the fluctuations of circumstance. In this psychological discipline lies the key to permanent freedom from financial stress. Control your mind, control your emotion, and the forces that govern success will align with you. Habits are the vessels through which this law is operationalized in daily life. The mind responds not only to deliberate thought, but to repeated behavior. Create routines that reinforce purpose, financial planning, and mental conditioning. Begin each day by reviewing your definite purpose, repeating your affirmations with feeling, visualizing desired outcomes, and setting clear, actionable steps. End each day with reflection. Examine what decisions, actions, or reactions aligned with purpose and where deviation occurred. Correct, refine, and recommit. The process is iterative and continuous. The subconscious learns through repetition, through reinforcement, through consistency. Habits that embody Lawbeck. Automatic. They eliminate the need for constant, effortful decision-making and anchor the mind in disciplined action. Financial stress cannot survive where mental and behavioral alignment is absolute. It is replaced by confidence, clarity, and inevitability. Persistence, the constant companion of desire and purpose, is enforced through daily application. Challenges, setbacks, and opposition are inevitable, but they are temporary. The individual trained in law recognizes that obstacles are the measure of alignment, the testing ground of faith, and the proof of the law's presence. To falter in the face of adversity is to invite stress. To persist is to command outcome. Every repeated action, every disciplined choice, every unflinching decision strengthens the magnetic field of opportunity, gradually dismantling scarcity, attracting resources, and reinforcing the subconscious patterns of abundance. Hill observed that persistence, when coupled with definite purpose and burning desire, is almost unstoppable. It converts opposition into fuel, delay into refinement, and difficulty into opportunity. Financial stress cannot persist against the force of persistent, purposeful action. Another crucial factor is decisiveness. The mind that is unsure, hesitant, or reactive signals scarcity to the subconscious, invites delay, and magnifies stress. Hill's study of successful individuals revealed that decision-making is both a skill and a habit. Decisions must be made promptly, executed consistently, and altered cautiously only when new evidence demands. Indecision is not mere delay, it is a corrosive mental habit that multiplies anxiety and undermines faith. To end financial stress, one must cultivate decisiveness in all aspects of life: financial planning, investment, career strategy, and personal management. Each decision, large or small, is a reinforcement of mastery, a calibration of thought, and a step toward tangible manifestation of purpose. Finally, understand the compounding effect of alignment. Desire without faith is unstable. Faith without action is inert. Action without persistence is wasted. Persistence without discipline is chaotic. Discipline without imagination is rigid. Imagination without visualization is aimless. Visualization without emotional intensity is ineffective. Each principle amplifies the other, creating a force that moves invisibly but inexorably toward tangible results. Financial stress is a symptom of disconnection from this alignment. Once the mind, emotion, and behavior operate in unison with law, stress ceases. Circumstance responds predictably. Opportunity manifests consistently. Scarcity loses its foothold. The law does not fail. The practitioner fails only when alignment is broken. Master the integration of thought, emotion, action, and habit, and financial stress dissolves as naturally as darkness yields to light. Take a moment to reflect on your own consciousness. How often do you feed your subconscious with doubt, fear, or distraction? How often do you practice deliberate visualization, emotional reinforcement, and disciplined action? How often do your habits embody law rather than reaction? Each neglected moment reinforces scarcity. Each intentional moment strengthens abundance. Financial stress is not an external imposition. It is a mirror of your mental alignment. To end it, you must take full command of your mind, your habits, and your emotional responses. You must be relentless in practice, unwavering in purpose, and absolute in faith. The law, once understood and applied, does not negotiate. It operates with the precision of inevitability. Your mind, trained to obey, becomes the permanent mechanism through which financial freedom is generated. This is the stage where the invisible becomes visible. The law is no longer a theory, but a lived process. Every day, through repeated disciplined application, you build an internal machine that generates opportunity. commands resources, and neutralizes stress. You no longer react to financial pressure, you anticipate, control, and direct. The subconscious, conditioned by autosuggestion, visualization, and emotional intensity, becomes a magnet for abundance. Habits, repeated without hesitation, become automatic channels for law in action. Faith, reinforced by success in micro-decisions and persistent effort, becomes unshakable. Desire, burning and focused, powers the engine. Decision, decisive and aligned, charts the course. Persistence, company, instant and uncompromising, drives forward momentum. Self-discipline maintains integrity. Fear is recognized, confronted, and transformed. In this orchestration, financial stress cannot survive. It is an obsolete pattern, replaced by clarity, control, and unstoppable forward motion. By now, you understand that financial stress is not a matter of circumstance, but a reflection of mental alignment. Yet comprehension alone does not suffice. To internalize the law, to command it so that stress is eradicated and abundance becomes inevitable, requires rigorous mental training, repeated psychological exercises, and conscious orchestration of thought and emotion. The mind, if left untended, drifts toward fear, hesitation, and scarcity because these patterns are the default of untrained consciousness. The individual who desires freedom from financial anxiety must treat the mind as a battlefield, a laboratory, and a forge, shaping each thought with precision, each emotion with control, and each action with disciplined intent. These are not abstract exercises, they are operational imperatives, the methods through which invisible forces of law are activated and aligned with your purpose. Begin with the practice of mental rehearsal. Each day, enter a quiet state and imagine your desired financial condition with uncompromising clarity. See the exact outcomes you intend, the resources you command, the opportunities that arise, the obligations that are met with ease. Immerse yourself emotio. Feel the relief of freedom, the confidence of control, the energy of abundance. Engage all senses. The mind does not distinguish between vivid imagination and present reality when the emotional intensity is absolute. This rehearsal programs the subconscious to recognize, prioritize, and orchestrate actions that will materialize the scenario you envision. Repeat it daily, morning and evening, until the images, the sensations, and the certainty become automatic, unquestionable. The subconscious, now saturated with your purpose, acts as an invisible magnet, drawing conditions, resources, and connections that correspond to the mental blueprint you have established. Next, employ precise autosuggestion. These are statements of absolute certainty, repeated with intensity, designed to override doubt and fear. Speak them aloud, write them down, internalize them. I command the resources I need to fulfill my purpose. Financial stress is temporary. My mind produces solutions, opportunity, and abundance. Every challenge I face strengthens my mastery and draws me closer to financial freedom. Repeat these statements with conviction, feeling their truth as though they were already reality. The subconscious absorbs repetition, emotional resonance, and clarity of intent. Each affirmation is a seed planted in fertile soil. Each repetition strengthens roots, and over time, these seeds mature into automatic behaviors, decisions, and perceptions that align with abundance. The law responds not to desire alone, but to the consistent, emotionally charged imprinting of belief upon the subconscious, simultaneously integrate deliberate decision-making into daily life. Indecision is the silent architect of stress. Hesitation is the scaffolding upon which scarcity is built. Every choice must be filtered through the lens of your definite purpose. Ask yourself, does this action advance my goal? Does it align with the mental blueprint of abundance I have rehearsed? Respond decisively. Execute each step without procrastination. Record the results and refine your approach only when necessary. The mind learns to act with clarity when consistently directed. Uncertainty is replaced with precision. Decisions executed consistently communicate to the subconscious, reinforcing belief, focus, and persistence. Over time, the mind becomes an automatic operator of law, executing purposeful actions without conscious struggle, and financial stress loses all power over the individual whose choices are deliberate and aligned. Emotional mastery is equally crucial. The mind reacts to fear, doubt, and anxiety with patterns that generate scarcity. You must observe these emotions, dissect their origin, and consciously replace them with faith, determination, and measured action. Do not attempt to suppress fear. It will manifest in hidden ways, but rather transform it into information, a signal to act, adjust, and persist. When fear arises about a potential loss, analyze the circumstance. S. Determine a decisive course and act. When anxiety surfaces regarding obligations or scarcity, use mental rehearsal and affirmation to recalibrate thought and emotion toward purpose. Mastery of emotion is not passive. It is active, deliberate, and relentless. It conditions the mind to respond predictably, consistently, and powerfully, neutralizing the reactive impulses that create financial stress. Develop daily habits that reinforce this alignment. Begin each morning with visualization and autosuggestion. Review your definite purpose and the steps required to achieve it. Take immediate action toward high-priority tasks that advance your financial and strategic goals. Monitor emotional state, correcting deviations toward fear or doubt with conscious reaffirmation of law. End each day with reflection. Assess decisions, actions, and outcomes against purpose. Adjust where necessary, but maintain faith in the ongoing operation of law. Habits repeated with consistency create momentum, reinforce subconscious alignment, and gradually convert internal mastery into tangible external results. Financial stress cannot endure in a mind so meticulously trained, so disciplined, so attuned to invisible law that every thought, emotion, and action serves purpose. Consider persistence once more, not as abstract principle, but as concrete practice. The challenges that generate financial tension are inevitable. Opportunities are often obscured by delay, competition, or apparent scarcity. Yet, persistence exercised daily transforms resistance into advantage. Persist with thought, persist with action, persist with belief, and the law will orchestrate resources, solutions, and connections that respond precisely to sustained, focused effort. The individual who abandons persistence at the first obstacle communicates uncertainty to the subconscious, perpetuating stress. The one who persists communicates certainty, mastery, and inevitability, dissolving stress through the unshakable pattern of deliberate action. Persistence is not optional. It is the mechanism through which mental alignment produces external manifestation. Imagination, mental rehearsal, autosuggestion, decisiveness, emotional mastery, habit formation, and persistence converge to form a single integrated system. The law does not operate on partial application. It requires cohesion. Desire alone, or faith alone, or visualization alone will not suffice. Financial stress is the inevitable outcome of incomplete integration. When principles are applied in combination repeatedly and deliberately, the subconscious becomes a loyal operator, the mind becomes an unerring guide, and the external world begins to reflect the inner command. Obstacles are no longer threats, they are information. Challenges are no longer paralyzing, they are leverage. Scarcity is no longer dominant, it is replaced by a predictable pattern of opportunity and resource alignment. The individual becomes a conductor, orchestrating invisible forces with the precision of law, and financial stress is rendered obsolete. Finally, recognize the permanence of internal mastery. The law is immutable, predictable, and unforgiving. Obedience produces wealth. Misalignment produces stress. But once mastered, alignment endures. Mental habits, emotional control, disciplined action, and subconscious programming establish a framework that operates continuously. Stress may attempt to reassert itself through external events, but the mind trained in law absorbs, redirects, and neutralizes it. You no longer react to circumstance. Circumstance conforms to your internal command. The invisible becomes visible. Opportunity manifests reliably. Resources appear as natural consequence. Financial stress, once a constant shadow, vanishes into irrelevance. The mind that obeys law cannot be shaken by circumstance. Abundance is its natural state, and the individual becomes unstoppable in thought, action, and result. The mastery of this law requires rigorous repetition, relentless attention, and unwavering faith. Daily, you must rehearse, affirm, decide, act, persist, and observe emotion with conscious intent. Every day of neglect allows the old patterns of stress to reassert themselves. Every day of deliberate practice strengthens alignment and cements the subconscious patterns that produce financial freedom. Over time, what begins as conscious effort becomes instinct. The mind becomes the automatic generator of opportunity, action, and health. Financial stress is no longer a variable in your life. It is a distant memory, a relic of a misaligned past. The law has been learned, internalized, and enacted. You are now operating from the position of control, certainty, and inevitability. By now, the patterns of thought, emotion, and action that govern wealth are no longer theoretical. They are visible, tangible in the subtle currents of your consciousness. Yet, mastery demands more than repetition. It demands refinement, precision, and the ability to leverage the invisible forces that shape all external reality. Financial stress is not merely the absence of money, it is the manifestation of misaligned thought, incomplete purpose, and untrained emotional response. To rise above it completely, one must move beyond mechanics into artistry, understanding the subtleties of mental influence, the rhythms of persistence, the orchestration of faith and imagination, into a force so compelling that circumstance itself bends to its command. The first subtlety is the recognition of mental momentum. Every thought, every decision, every action contributes to a flow, a current within your consciousness that either attracts abundance or reinforces scarcity. This momentum is invisible, yet profoundly real. A single day of indecision, a single repetition of doubt can divert it. A week of disciplined action, a month of emotionally charged visualization can amplify it exponentially. The law responds not to isolated acts, but to sustained currents. This is why daily mental rehearsal, repeated affirmation, and deliberate action are not optional exercises. They are the instruments that cultivate unstoppable momentum. Your subconscious, trained to recognize and reinforce this current, begins to operate automatically, aligning thought and behavior without conscious struggle, guiding you toward resources, allies, and opportunities that correspond precisely to your purpose. Next, consider the principle of compounding opportunity. Just as small deposits grow into massive sums through the natural process of interest, so too do small, disciplined actions compound within the mind to generate outsized results. Each visualization, each affirmation, each decisive action, each emotional recalibration is a deposit into the mental bank of abundance. The law multiplies these deposits, producing outcomes that exceed linear expectation. Financial stress is neutralized not in dramatic leaps, but in the quiet accumulation of internal alignment, the invisible layering of thought, habit, and persistent action. The mind, once properly conditioned, begins to anticipate, generate, and execute solutions before the conscious self even recognizes the need. This is the invisible architecture of wealth, subtle, silent, inexorable. To ignore it is to invite scarcity. To cultivate it is to command abundance. Leverage of unseen forces requires imagination honed to precision. Most individuals imagine vaguely, loosely, or erratically, using scattered signals that the subconscious cannot follow. The practitioner of law imagines with clarity, with structure, with emotional intensity. Each mental picture is complete, exact, and purposeful, leaving no room for doubt or distraction. Imagine the exact financial outcome desired, but also the process, the decisions, the interactions, the resources, the timing, the challenges, and the mastery of each step. Engage emotion fully. The subconscious, now saturated with detailed, precise imagery, orchestrates reality to correspond. This is not wishful thinking. It is operational mental engineering. Opportunity, creativity, and alignment manifest naturally when the mind is focused with precision and emotional force. Financial stress loses its footing because scarcity cannot coexist with a mind generating exact, irresistible pathways to abundance. Persistence, now integrated with momentum, habit, and emotional mastery, becomes the amplifier of invisible law. Obstacles, resistance, and opposition are not interruptions. They are proof that the law is active, that forces are in motion, that testing occurs. The mind that wavers is caught in reactive chaos. The mind that persists that executes deliberately, that recalibrates without hesitation, transforms opposition into leverage. Each challenge encountered and mastered reinforces internal momentum, strengthens subconscious programming, and signals to the mind and universe alike that alignment is complete. The consequence is a predictable, inexorable attraction of resources, solutions, and opportunities. Financial stress generated by hesitation, doubt, and fear cannot survive where persistent, aligned action prevails. Decision in this context operates as a multiplier. The individual who acts decisively, who integrates faith with knowledge, who aligns choice with purpose, triggers unseen chains of consequence. Every decision executed with clarity communicates to the subconscious and to the invisible forces of law, reinforcing momentum, enhancing alignment, and producing opportunity. Conversely, indecision produces stagnation, reinforces anxiety, and perpetuates scarcity consciousness. Each choice is a signal, a calibration, a command. Mastery of financial stress is therefore inseparable from mastery of decision, the ability to act with speed, precision, and unshakable confidence, informed by vision, purpose, and persistent focus. Emotional acuity amplifies all these forces. The individual who has mastered thought but not emotion remains vulnerable. Emotional mastery requires observing internal states, recognizing triggers, and consciously steering feelings toward faith, focus, and resilience. Negative emotion, fear, envy, frustration, despair, corrupts momentum, distorts perception, and undermines execution. Positive emotion, confidence, determination, enthusiasm, clarity, enhances alignment, strengthens persistence, and draws solutions into manifest reality. Hill emphasized that energy follows emotion. The intensity and quality of feeling direct the flow of thought and action. To eliminate financial stress, one must consciously cultivate emotional energy that reinforces purpose, amplifies imagination, and sustains persistence. This is the internal architecture upon which wealth is constructed. Habits, now operating at the intersection of thought, emotion, and action, generate automation and mastery. Daily practices, visualization, affirmation, decisive action, reflection, emotional recalibration produce predictable patterns in behavior and subconscious programming. The mind ceases to vacillate. Fear loses dominance, and the individual responds to circumstance with precision. Wealth becomes a natural consequence, stress becomes irrelevant, and the law operates as designed. The accumulation of small, consistent acts of alignment produces exponential results. Momentum, compounding action, precise imagination, decisiveness, emotional mastery, and persistent habit converge to form an invisible machine whose output is abundance and whose failure is impossible for the disciplined practitioner. Finally, recognize the subtle yet transformative power of faith combined with knowledge. Knowledge without faith produces hesitation. Faith without knowledge produces recklessness. Integrated, they form a predictive, controlled force that communicates certainty to the subconscious and directs invisible law to materialize results. Financial stress arises when either is absent, when fear overrides planning, or when knowledge is misapplied. To command abundance, maintain faith in the predictability of law while acting decisively on informed understanding. Trust the process, but execute. Act with clarity, discipline, and unwavering commitment. The invisible forces align, the subconscious orchestrates, opportunity manifests, and scarcity becomes irrelevant. The law, once internalized, is self-reinforcing, automatic, and permanent. As you reflect on these forces, understand that mastery is cumulative. Each principle, mental momentum, compounding action, precise imagination, persistent execution, decisive choice, emotional mastery, disciplined habit, and integrated faith, builds upon the other. Each day of practice reinforces the invisible architecture, strengthens internal command, and amplifies the flow of abundance. Financial stress cannot coexist with this alignment. It is not a condition to negotiate with, but a consequence to eliminate through conscious mastery. The mind, trained to obey the law, generates resources, attracts opportunity, and orchestrates reality with the precision of inevitability. You are no longer a passive actor. You are the architect, the conductor, and the executor of your financial destiny. You have arrived at the final stage, the threshold where understanding becomes mastery, where knowledge crystallizes into action, and where the invisible laws of thought, emotion, and persistence converge into unstoppable force. By now you have been immersed in the architecture of wealth, the definitive purpose that directs every action, the burning desire that fuels every effort, the faith that anchors thought against every wave of doubt, the autosuggestion that programs the subconscious into relentless alignment, the imagination that conceives what does not yet exist, the decisiveness that turns vision into reality, the persistence that converts resistance into momentum, and the emotional mastery and disciplined habit that make all these forces automatic. Each principle alone is powerful. Together they form a machine of mental, emotional, and behavioral precision, an engine whose output is abundance and whose failure is impossible for those who obey it fully. Financial stress is not merely reduced, it is eradicated. Scarcity, hesitation, and fear have no foothold where law is internalized. The mind that has mastered this system commands opportunity, attracts resources, and orchestrates circumstance as naturally as gravity pulls the earth toward the sun. Yet comprehension and even disciplined practice are insufficient without total commitment. The final step demands that you recognize your absolute responsibility for the state of your financial life. No external circumstance, no authority, no market condition, no fluctuation in fortune can diminish the power of a mind aligned with law. You are the architect, the operator, the force of consequence in your own life. Every choice you have made, every action you take, every thought you permit, every emotion you cultivate shapes the reality you inhabit. The moment you accept this truth, hesitation ceases, indecision dissolves, and fear loses its dominion. The law does not negotiate, it does not compromise, it does not wait for permission. Obey it fully and it manifests results. Ignore it and struggle persists. The responsibility is absolute, the control is absolute, and the consequence of mastery is absolute. Now imagine your life in a state of perfect alignment. Each morning begins with clarity of purpose, a deliberate rehearsal of desired outcomes, and the repeated affirmation of your power to command circumstance. Each day is executed with precision, decisions made decisively, action taken without delay, emotional response calibrated to faith and purpose. Habits are reinforced daily. Subconscious programming is aligned without interruption, and persistence transforms very obstacle into leverage. Imagination conceives solutions, opportunities, and connections invisible to the untrained mind. Momentum builds, compounding effort and intention into results that accelerate beyond expectation. The external world bends to this internal command because it is the predictable reflection of the disciplined, persistent, and aligned mind. Financial stress has no place here. It has been displaced by certainty, control, and the inevitability of abundance. This is not vision. This is law in motion. Yet the ultimate test is application under pressure. Circumstances will challenge, adversity will test, and resistance will rise. The mind that has been trained in law does not waver. Fear is confronted and transformed. Indecision is replaced by clarity. Hesitation is replaced by action. Each test strengthens momentum, validates persistence, and reinforces alignment. The invisible forces that govern reality are responsive only to deliberate, consistent, and emotionally charged thought and action. To falter under challenge is to relinquish control. To act decisively is to command reality. Financial stress exists only where alignment falters. Where mastery is complete, pressure becomes a tool, resistance becomes fuel, and scarcity is neutralized by the inevitability of law. The moment of testing is the moment of demonstration. Mastery reveals itself not in comfort, but in action under adversity. This is the point where ordinary individuals falter, and those Oh, command destiny rise. Mastery requires no excuses, no rationalization, no compromise. Every day of hesitation diminishes momentum. Every fear indulged strengthens scarcity. Every inaction reinforces financial stress. Conversely, every day of disciplined practice, decisive action, emotional mastery, and alignment with law compounds power, multiplies opportunity, and solidifies freedom. There is no external substitute. There is no shortcut. The law is exacting, immutable, and inevitable. Master it fully, and the world bends to your conscious command. Fail to master it, and struggle continues indefinitely. The responsibility, the action, and the results are yours alone. Now let this final thought penetrate with clarity. Financial freedom is not a gift. It is the consequence of mastery. Wealth is not a matter of circumstance. It is the reflection of thought, emotion, decision, and persistent, disciplined action. Scarcity is not imposed by the world. It is generated internally through fear, indecision, and misalignment with law. The law that governs abundance is simple, silent, and precise. Set a definite purpose, cultivate burning desire, fortify it with unshakable faith, program your subconscious through daily autosuggestion, visualize outcomes with imagination and emotional intensity, act decisively, persist relentlessly, master your emotions, and create habits that embody law. Obey this law fully, without compromise, and financial stress ceases. Obey it partially, and struggle endures. The choice is yours, and the consequence is absolute. You must act now, not tomorrow, not when conditions feel favorable, not when fear has diminished, but now. Stand and claim total responsibility for your financial life. Reorganize thought, commit desire, fortify faith, rehearse mental imagery, program your subconscious, act decisively, persist relentlessly, master emotion, and cultivate unbreakable habits. Do not wait for external validation. Do not rely on luck, timing, or circumstance. The power to command reality resides entirely within you. Align fully with law, and scarcity will be destroyed. Hesitate, and it will persist. Act decisively, and the invisible forces of thought and persistence will marshal resources, opportunity, and abundance to your command. Claim this mastery now. Commit fully. Act relentlessly, and let the certainty of law guide every decision, every thought, every breath. Financial stress is not inevitable. Freedom, abundance, and power are inevitable for the mind that obeys law without compromise. Stand now and seize it.